What's up, everybody? Jared Sandler here. Time now for today's Rangers game memory. And this one is, if not the ultimate memory for me, it's certainly up there. I've been saving it. July 7th, 2015. That was the game and the day I was able to broadcast my first ever major league game. I had been doing pre and post and a part of the in-game broadcasts up until that point, but Eric, who is allowed to miss a certain amount of games each year, backloaded his dates off in 2015, so I didn't get to call a game until July 7th, and it was really special. I grew up playing sports, wanting to whether it was basketball, baseball, football, play at the top level, and always dreamt about my debut as a player. And as is the case for so many of us, I fell way short of that. And so when I had my sights set on broadcasting, the dream was broadcasting at the top level. And for baseball, that's obviously Major League Baseball. And it really, for me, wasn't even necessarily for the Rangers. I mean, that was the ultimate dream because that was my hometown team, my favorite team, but it was inconceivable. I mean, it wasn't going to happen. So why even tease myself with that? I mean, it was always in the back of my head, but I was just trying to get there with anyone. And when I joined the Rangers in this capacity, I knew that it was going to happen because that was a part of what my responsibilities were going to be, filling in when either Matt or Eric were unable to be there, or when they had the opportunity to take a game or a series off. But even though I knew for those months that it was going to happen, that day was really special. And it goes back to a few years before. My dad was driving me home from Minnesota. Prior to my senior year of college, I spent the summer in the Northwoods League broadcasting for the Brainerd Lakes area Lunkers. And it was my first real experience broadcasting baseball in a way that mirrored what life would truly be like as a baseball broadcaster, particularly in the minor leagues with the bus trips and the hit or miss hotels, but broadcasting every day. I think it was 70 games in 74 days. And so, in college, when you're broadcasting, you're not doing it like that. The college schedule, I guess, except for football, football mirrors an NFL schedule in that it's one game a week. But even the basketball schedule, you play 2 games a week tops. Baseball, you're maybe playing 5, usually 4 games a week, but you don't get all those off days in minor league baseball or Major League Baseball. And my dad was driving me back from Minnesota, I think, to LA. I think I went straight from Minnesota to college in LA, and he had talked about a book called Always by My Side, which was written by Jim Nantz. And he had read it, he loved it, and he gave it to me. And I really like reading now. I was starting to learn to like reading then, but even now I'm a slow reader. It's very tough for me, just with the pace in which I read, my attention span, to read a book in one sitting. I hear people do that. I know, like the Harry Potters people would talk about getting it and just reading it all day. I can never do that. But the minute I picked that book up, other than when we maybe stopped for gas to go to the bathroom, I didn't put that book down until I finished it. And it's a great book. And Jim Nantz talks about the relationship he had with his father and the opportunity he eventually had as a broadcaster to say thanks to his father by bringing him along all these opportunities that he had, whether it was calling the Final Four, the Masters, what have you. And I remember, I finished the book and I looked to my dad, who's, my best friend and so incredibly influential to me in my life and what I've pursued. And I said, if I ever get the chance to call a major league game, I want you there with me. And it was one of those statements where I felt I was kind of like pumping myself up and making it, envisioning that it was going to happen. But in the back of my mind, not really for a lack of confidence, just the reality is in the numbers game that is broadcasting, I was like, I'm saying it, but it probably won't ever happen. And through my minor league journey, my dad was so instrumental in reminding me about patience, when I was frustrated or just telling me how proud he was, and never discouraging me from pursuing my dream, even though that dream was me making $25,000 a year living in a city that has 4 stoplights. But, and frankly, if my dad ever said, you know what, son, I think it's time for you to start thinking about making real money, that would have absolutely altered my thought process, but he never did. And so that day, July 7th, was special. The Rangers lost to the Diamondbacks 4-2. And really, I do remember the game. Robbie Ray started for the Diamondbacks, Giovanni Gallardo for the Rangers. There was just one extra base hit in the game. It was a Delino DeShields double. I didn't get to call any runs that game. As a matter of fact, I had the 5 games leading into the All-Star break. That was the first, and the Rangers went 1-4. In those 5 games. I did get a call, a Keone Kela inning, which he struck out a couple in the 7th. But there really wasn't a whole lot from like the way of action in my call. But what was special, and I thank John Blake, the Executive Vice President of Communications for the Rangers to this day for allowing it. He allowed my dad to sit to my left in between Matt Hicks and I for that game. And that was special for me. I know it was super special for my dad. And that day was really cool. Not to make more of it than what it was, but for me, it was my major league debut, and I spent that day as best as I could with my normal routine of working out in the morning. But I found that I was texting and calling people, just thanking them for everything they had done to get me to that point. Whether it was people I worked with in my broadcasting stops along the way, coaches who just played a big role in the development of my love for sports, or just encouraging me to be this or that, or helping me become the person who I was. I remember calling my basketball coach from high school, Jay Andrews, who just was such an important figure for me. My brothers, my best friend, and my dad, and I just, it was a lot of gratitude because I wasn't going to do this alone. I didn't do it alone, and I was really fortunate along the way to have lots of help. And that game, funny story, I was nervous. All right, I was really, really nervous. I had not been nervous for a broadcast in a long time, but I was really nervous, and I didn't say a single thing in the top of the first inning. And coming back, Matt Hicks, being the great partner that he is, like, kind of brought me into the conversation. I made a joke. I'm self-deprecating. I'm going to make fun of myself. And I was like, my headset wasn't working, but glad we got it fixed. And it was more of a ha-ha, like I didn't say a word. And then I look over to smile at our engineer, Ted Nichols-Payne, and Ted, I didn't forget, but like I didn't think that Ted would take it like that, I didn't think people would take it seriously, and then all of a sudden people were like, "Oh, what's Ted doing? How did Ted not get your headset fixed?" So I had to say, "No, guys, I was just making fun of myself. I was too nervous to talk." But eventually, I said a few things, and then which is important. You can't broadcast and not talk. But anyway. It was a special day, a special night, and to have my dad with me to share in that moment was really cool. And I know I had a lot of friends and family listening from wherever, and I got a ton of texts that day, and it was a moment I'll never forget. July 7th, 2015. I have the scorebook. I'll keep that forever. But it's something that I'll never not have that. I want to continue to grow and achieve as a broadcaster, but no matter what, I got to broadcast a major league game for my favorite team growing up, and to have my dad there with me was really special. So that's my Rangers game memory for today. Hope you enjoyed.